My name is Jane Mariera. I'm the Executive Director of the Partnership for Economic Policy. We'll be talking more about the Partnership for Economic Policy. I want to welcome all of you to this session on Emergence, from Emergency, Economic System Change to an Earth4All. The session that we are going to have for the next 45 minutes or so, we are going to have 4 speakers. I've introduced myself. I'll be one of the speakers. Then we have Till, who is a program director working with the Earth4All and the Club of Rome, who will be telling us more about the Earth4All, what this is all about, and how why it is important. Then we'll have John Orera, who is the head of the SDG Coordinating Directorate of Kenya. Unfortunately, as you know, what is happening with the passes, he could not get his pass, so someone will be speaking on his behalf. And then we'll have Rin Modesta, who is a youth climate worker in Kenya. Rin, you should be waving to the crowd. And we have Dora from Global Partnership, who also say something together, just after Rin. We'll have a very short session, so I will not go a lot into the introduction. All the organizations represented and the people speaking, you'll be able to track them online. And so I look forward to a very engaging session, and most important, to continue the conversation after the opening. So without further ado, I'll invite Till to kick us off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane, and we will start with a short video. Does the sound work?
The world has never been so rich, but we're still susceptible to shocks and crises. Can we build more resilient societies? Not utopian, but functioning and fair. This is the story of Earth4All. We assembled a group of economic thinkers and scientists and developed a computer model to test their big ideas. We then asked, what's possible in one generation? If we carry on as normal, population and material footprints continue to grow, particularly due to overconsumption in rich countries. The gap between the richest and everyone else widens. Social tensions worsen. Climate change impacts become ever worse. But what if the world takes a giant leap now, with 5 extraordinary turnarounds? In this possible and plausible future, all people can live a good life within safer planetary boundaries. We avoid the worst climate impacts. Poverty ends earlier. Population peaks lower. Well-being rises. Social tensions fall. Nature starts to heal. Incredibly, the investment needed is only 2 to 4% of global income. But we do need massive investments now, driven by governments on a clear mission to enact the turnarounds.
So, that is a very short introduction to Earth4All, and I will go a little bit more into detail, but actually start with another book which was published 50 years ago. A book summarized by one of the authors back then, as millions of people thought the book was right, millions of people thought it was wrong, and very few have actually read the book. And the book was The Limits to Growth. The Limits to Growth was the first book to point out that unlimited material consumption on a finite world is not possible. And what Limits to Growth did is take a holistic approach. You can see that with a picture at the elephant on the right side, 6 blind people standing around the elephant, everyone touching a different piece, and the one touching the skin thinks it's a tree, the one touching the ear thinks it's a snake, but only by zooming out, only by considering all parts of the elephant, you recognize the full picture. And I think that this is symptomatic for what we need to do today. We know that climate change is a big issue, but we know that climate change is just part of a broader, of an economic problem, and we need to tackle the causes rather than the symptoms. So this warning came 50 years ago, and what happened in the last 50 years? Well, the trends have not been sustainable. We see a rise, we see growth on basically every aspect of our socio and economic world, not only climate change, not only CO2, but also urban population, tropical forest loss, nature use, large dams, etc. We are in a logic of growth in all different components. And interestingly, that's where we were in 1972. The authors back then thought, we tell the world a message and we could find ourselves on a different trajectory, but that did not happen. So it's an interesting part also for today to know that the largest damage we did to the world in times when we already knew what was happening. And what was happening is very clear. I mean, we are at a climate conference, so there is no need to go too much into detail to that. I just want to point out two things. One, it's not only about climate change. We see we are breaching planetary boundaries, 6 already, which is not just the climate, but also biodiversity loss, etc. And the second important point here, we are not speaking about anything in the future. We are speaking about very, very real problems that are coming along with the climate change already now. You see on the right side the development of the temperature in the last 100 years. So this narrative of, in the future the world will be bad, is just inaccurate. We see that the consequences, mostly felt also at the moment in low-income countries, are here now, and the increases are very visible. But it's important to state that this is not due to our all action. This is not because everyone in the world contributed to that equally. There is a very clear responsibility of an overconsumption of high-income countries, as we see here on these slides. We see the breaching of planetary boundaries of high-income countries on the right, and those with shortcomings on the social factors on the left. And I think it is very, very important to point out that the climate crisis is inherently linked to our socio-economic crisis. The social factor, particular inequality, is a massive factor and driver for climate change, and not only on a state level, but also on an individual level. We know, of course, that people with higher income consume more. They fly more, they have bigger houses, they have bigger cars, they have more consumption. But that's why it's important, if we speak about the responsibility for climate change, to look that the top 10% global income earners consume as much as 50% of CO2. You can even narrow that down farther. The top 1% of wealthiest individuals in the world contribute 17% of CO2 globally. So when we speak about who's going to pay for the damages, who is going to solve the problems, we need to be aware we are not all sitting in the same boat. There is a responsibility by the wealthiest, and that's why the socio and the economic factors belong together. So that's what we tried to do in Earth4All. We developed this computer model. We described different policies, both in the social side and the economic side and the environmental side. And compared to the limits to growth, we attached to that a campaign, because we know that it's not enough to just throw out a book with some suggestions, but that we need to get people on board. That we want to create a movement of movements, that different people, different voices have to be part of this journey, and that we together need to imagine a future and a better future and how it could look like. So in the last years, we did this research. We then published the book, which is out now, and we describe 2 different scenarios in the book. One is too little too late. This is mentioned in the video, which is basically a continuation of our current trajectory. The other one is a giant leap. And the giant leap, we think it was important to not only describe it from a normative perspective, but also be very clear on what these transformations would involve. And we describe concrete policy suggestions across different areas: energy, food, inequality, poverty, and empowerment. And attached to these suggestions, we describe concrete policy solutions that do, of course, look very, very differently in different countries. What we did in the book is a global outlook. For each of these turnarounds, we try to describe some potential solutions, which we won't describe in detail now. But you would see that in the book, but we know that these solutions look differently at different places. And that's why it's such a pleasure to be here today and work and kick off this Kenya National Engagement Plan together with the Partnership for Economic Policy, because I think the goal is the same all over the world. We want to increase well-being for the majority of the people. We see that this is not happening at the moment, but we know that we have the technical tools. We know that we have the measurements. We know that we have the knowledge to increase well-being for all within planetary boundaries. And in order to find out what this looks like in different countries, what this looks like in Kenya, it's a real pleasure to be here, to work together with Partnership for Economic Policy, but also all others who are here today. And we will go more into detail now of what this looks like here on the ground. But pleasure to be here, and we know we have the ideas for a better world, and we can co-create it together. Thank you, and I pass over again to Jane.
Thank you very much, Till, for that exposition of what we are doing with Earth4All, what has been done already, springing from the limits of growth 50 years after. It's really an exciting time. So as I said at the beginning, I'm Jane Mariera. I'm from the Partnership for Economic Policy. And Partnership for Economic Policy is a Southern-led global organization dedicated to supporting local-led development in the global south. We actually support capacity building in research and policy engagement. I would want to emphasize that part, policy stakeholder engagement. And this is really what we'll be doing mostly for Earth4All. We are a global NGO, but headquartered in Nairobi. That is where we sit. And basically from what you can see from our core activities, I want just to emphasize the second, that is building bridges between research and policy. So there is research that has been involved in the Earth4All. Maybe I would have said that you may have seen my picture. I'm a member of the Transformational Economic Commission of the Club of Rome, among other things. That's how I engage with this work. So there's research that is being carried out now on cascading kind of the messages of the Earth4All to Kenya. And then we are trying to see how we bridge that research with the gap between that research and local policy. And then also, most important, boosting project visibility and impact on policy. But having said that, what is it that we are doing for Kenya? The Earth4All program of work for Kenya focuses on 3 or 4 research questions. First, asking, listening to what Till has already spoken about, what are the implications of these key messages on well-being, inequality, and rising social tensions for Kenya? Just like we'll be looking at this for other countries. Actually, the first country that this has been done in Austria, then we have Kenya, and then we move on to other countries. Then what are the implications of adopting the 2 scenarios that Till has talked about, the 2 little 2 rate and the giant leap for Kenya? What are the scenarios? And this will be done using the, looking at the SDGs and Agenda 2063 and beyond. And then can we find pathways to reboot the Kenyan economic system so that we can achieve prosperity for all. And then finally, the implications, as I've said, for SDG and Agenda 2063 and above. So for the Kenyan case, what we are doing, the idea is to champion the Earth4All messages to ensure that they align with both national and some subnational or county development policies to ensure that they actually are in sync. And this is based on 4 principles, local circumstances, because as Till has said, the Earth4All it's not a one-size-fits-all. It is global, but then how do we bring it to the local circumstances? Then local partners, you are all partners in this. We talk about working in government. We talk about working with youth. We talk about working with CBOs. We talk about working with county governments, anyone who has a stake in this. And then inclusion of unheard voices. Who are the unheard voices? Think about those communities that are worst hit by climate change. Okay? Think about those communities who are marginalized because of their own cultural orientations, and maybe Dora might mention that at some point. Think about the youth, think about the women, think about people with special abilities, and so forth. And then finally, scientific expertise, the thinkers that go into this, both economic and non-economic, and citizen engagement from all walks of life. For the national campaigns that will be championing in Kenya, the roadmap is in three kind of blocks. First, we are working on developing science-based policy propositions directed to both national and some sub-national governments. This cannot be done by one organization or one institution. It is something that is going to be very consultative and ensure that we are including the voices of everyone. We will be reaching to experts from all walks of life. So this is also kind of a call to action that really will be calling upon you to partner with us in this. Then catalyzing a national informal alliance, especially for those who will be pushing these messages forward, including convening deliberative spaces. Where can we discuss this? How can we include the youth, these communities that we are talking about? Can we go to the people in the most marginalized areas of the country and ensure that we include their voices as we listen to this? In terms of the national engagement, we have 4 pillars. First, we have the research. I think I've already mentioned. We are using what we call the ISDG model to do this for Kenya. And it's a collaboration between the Club of Rome, the Millennium Institute, and the Partnership for Economic Policy, where we'll be doing scenario simulations and in-depth analysis. And again, as we do this, we want to consult as widely as possible. We want to share as we do it with everyone, so that we are sure that we at the end of the day, we are going to have a very inclusive report, just like we had with the Earth4All report. Then about the citizen engagement, I've already mentioned, we want to build alliances and stakeholder groups. I said all of you have mentioned, and even those that may not feel that they are mentioned, there's room for everyone. I do really want everyone to reach out to Partnership for Economic Policy, Club for Rome, Earth4All, for us to work together. Then advocacy. We need to foster a shift away from focusing on GDP growth towards well-being economies. In Kenya, I think we have this famous slogan that we cannot eat GDP. So the point is that we do not want to focus on GDP, but we want to focus on those turnarounds that still has discussed, from empowerment of women, for instance, to the others, to ensure that we have an all-inclusive well-being, economic well-being system. And finally, we'll do outreach and public campaigns for a just and sustainable economic system, where, again, I want to emphasize that we cannot do it on our own. PEP cannot do it. Club of Rome cannot do it. Earth4All cannot do it. It is for all of us to work together, as we only be coordinating. Finally, the networking for impact, as I've already said, at the end of the day, when this work is done, we want to explore how the country-level engagement can lead to multilateral and international cooperation. It's not just about Kenya. And then we want to look at upscaling the simulations and engagement to other African countries. As I said, Earth4All is global. I count ourselves very lucky that I wouldn't say we are guinea pig, but this work has started the national engagement in Austria and in Kenya. And from here, then we move to other countries. So thank you. That's what I want to share. And with that, I will invite Michael to say a few remarks on behalf of Mr. Orera. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. My name is Michael Morege, but I'm here to represent Mr. John Olela, who is the director of the SDGs Coordination Directorate for the Government of Kenya. Unfortunately, he could not have been here with us at the moment. Mr. Olela says that as a member state of the United Nations, Kenya is committed to the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and all its 17 SDGs, and that he relays a commitment both to the implementation of SDGs and also in the Earth4All initiative. So the Directorate is a key partner in this initiative. And he says that Kenya is committed to a whole government and a whole society approach in SDGs implementation geared towards leaving no one behind. And he says, for the very important point that Professor Mariara mentioned about inclusion, that the government of Kenya is committed, and that is why it's currently implementing an agenda called BITA, that is a bottom-up economic transformation agenda that aims at leaving no one behind, especially in terms of delivery of SDGs. And he also mentioned to us that even though that the government or the country has achieved some progress in some of the SDGs, and some of these indicators where the government has achieved, or the country has achieved progress, include poverty reduction, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, provision of clean water and sanitation, increased access to electricity, combating climate change. Yeah, those are some of the indicators where the country has achieved some progress. But then there are other indicators where there has been delayed progress or even reversal, especially given multiple crises such as climate change, COVID-19, and also the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. And Mr. Olela relays, as I said, his commitment towards participating in this initiative, and he invites all of us, as it has been mentioned before, we be partners in monitoring and tracking the implementation of SDGs, and especially through this wonderful initiative. Thank you.
So I don't have a slide, but I have experience. I hope that counts. So based on the conversation around building back on economic systems away from emergencies, as a young person who's worked with different communities and also on aspects of climate policy, my view and opinion is we need to build back to basics. So production currently looks at profit, and that is based on capitalist systems, and sometimes also community systems look at giving communities a loan. But we need to have a balance between profit as well as production that accounts to basic livelihoods. So I give you an example about communities in Siaya that I was privileged to attend a conference on, and part of their issues was on the fact that some of the indigenous crops were being ridden away because of this new innovation and technologies that people are trying, this new seed production that they're trying to also put into such communities. But they went back to very basic, very indigenous, drought-resistant crops simply because that was what they were able to produce for their own production. So the first basic system of building economic systems that are mostly climate resilient and create an Earth for all is how are we able to feed our people? Basic needs. How are we able to provide food, shelter, as well as any other health issues that they need? So as a young person, and especially in policy sector, we need to have such voices, such indigenous knowledges, such indigenous solutions being brought up into policy systems. And this needs a lot of capacity building investment, and this also needs a mind shift change, and also listening. We don't listen most of the time. We don't listen to the community that we're working with. We don't listen to the young people that we're working with as well. So we need to invest into the people that we need to work with. And to build an economic system, we need to be crucial in how we're looking at those basic needs that these people require. So that is my challenge to everyone. On the aspect of building back from emergency, we need to also look at aspects of policy. How are we able to implement policies from a global level to a national level? And I have been privileged to work in the climate space in terms of policy and development. And I have to say there's a whole challenge about language. And that is a very crucial aspect that we need to look at. We talk in terms of technological languages, very technical terminologies. I mean, some of them here were presented. I am privileged to be able to understand some of them, but my community may not be able to. Some of the young people I work with may not be able to, but they're able to actually make the implementation of it. So how are we able to translate some of these policies? How are we able to also translate some of the words, some of the key needs and demands of young indigenous people, grassroots communities, into some of these policy sectors that we're working with? So that is my challenge to you. I don't want to take so much time, but as young people, we are ready to invest. We are ready to take up as much knowledge. And also, I'm really hoping that every single one in this room can be able to have a mind shift change, and we can be able to have all indigenous knowledge, all grassroots impacts being uplifted to the global level, to the national level. And I think we will be able to build back up a good Earth for all. Thank you.
Oh, you did? Oh, cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Dora Okeo. I work with an organization called Global Partners for Development. And as I stand here, I came all the way from Fangano Island on Lake Victoria. Anybody aware of where that is? Yes, I'm from Lake Victoria, and I've also partnered with women groups in Turkana. And I'm glad I come after Lynn because we work closely with communities. We work with the fisher folk, installing filters in some of their boats to try and reduce the spillage on the lake, and also try to have them accept the fact that, you just can't, get your fish and then you shred everything, throw scale everything else into the lake. It's adding to the pollution that we have there. And in Turkana, like Lynn has said, I learned when I came in this summit that climate change in Kiswahili is called mabadiliko ya tabianchi. I didn't know what that is. I knew it was hali ya hewa, but hali ya hewa is climate. And we still haven't broken down what carbon credit is, carbon finance, what that is in the local languages that we work with. I come from the Luo community. In Turkana, we work with the Samburu and some of the Pokot and some of the Nitukanas that are there. I do not speak their language, but I respect their culture. And in terms of policies, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I got that phrase and I keep saying it. We may have this strategy, it may look good on paper, but you come to the ground. I cannot speak before the Turkana because the men have to speak first. The elders have to go first, and I respect that. It's part of their culture, it's part of their custom. If I want them to listen to me, I need to give them time first. They need to accept me. I need to find a way of respecting who they are, how they work, and then get to communicate with them. So I really hope that out of all this and the guiding principles that we have for Earth4All, we're going to ensure that we break down the languages and we get down to the communities. All these summits are good. It's fancy. We come, we have the tags. I mean, it's nice to be around. But it's over 34 degrees in Kibish in Turkana North. In Lokicha right now and in Kainuk, the West Pokot, the bandits are fighting. And Kainuk is one of the bed breakfasts that we have for Turkana. It's near River Takwel. If bandits come and raid your farm when you're already expecting an harvest, then affects food security. So these are some of the things that we need to look into. Nairobi is different. Turkana County is different. Lake Victoria and Homa Bay County is different, and each specific policy with each specific community, we can come up with different ideas and different innovations, and I look forward to it. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter, for Q&A, please.
Thank you very much. The speakers who have gone ahead, and we know Till has, through the video and also through his presentation, he has articulated the challenge, the problem, and some solutions. Jane has talked about the initiative that we are going to roll out for Kenya, and then thereafter to Africa and the rest of the world. And then we've heard the youth voices as articulated by Lynn. And then we've heard about the community experiences as espoused by Dora. So I'm sure there will be maybe a few questions, areas of clarification. So please feel free. We can clarify, we can respond to you, because we want to really start together as a community, as a people, to be able to address the challenge that has been articulated. Thank you. You are welcome.
Okay, my name is Simon Onyango. I'm the founder of Kenastomy. You know, I've been doing research on nature, and I found that nature is more bold. Not for now we are talking about climate change, but in the future it will be more something catastrophic. So for me, I based in organic product. Like I have simplified ways we can use organic waste to manufacture furniture and building blocks. So in this innovation, I make it simple so that in the community level we can do production without depending on expensive machine. So my aim is to reach as many youths as I can. So I'm asking this panel if I can be connected with more youths, I can train them for free so that they can take this as business opportunity, also to save environment. That is my question.
Thank you very much. Let's have like 3 or so questions, then we can respond. Yes, we can. Yeah, we can have him, and then you want to do it?
No, Lynn's going to respond to that one, but we can connect.
Yeah, let's have like 2-3 questions, then we can have responses.
Just give me 1 minute. I first compose myself. I'll come in, please.
I can respond? That's okay.
Yes.
Okay, to respond to you, I think that's a very good initiative, and congratulations for what you're doing. Personally, I'm really impressed with everyone who does basic and also simple, but really impressive and really impactful projects. I came with a bunch of young people here, so that's maybe somewhere to start. And I think there's really a good opportunity to train other young people, and there's various communities. I am happy to also link you up. I think Earth4All also works with different community youth as well. So there's a very good room to be able to train other young people on very good innovations that are also basic and also simple, but at the same time making impact within their community and also providing livelihoods for them. So maybe that's something I can be able to talk to you after this. But yes, absolutely, there's absolutely so much room for that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn. We can have an additional question. Yes.
Thank you very much. My question is about...
Sorry, just introduce yourself. Just say your name and then your organization, and then you raise a question.
Thank you very much. My name is Brilliant Ruto. I am a friend, and my question is about indigenous knowledge, especially with farming practices, and I'm asking, how do we get to integrate the knowledge these people in local grassroots have into the global and national frameworks? Like, most of the time you find that we don't have people from grassroots, especially like women and children, and those are the people who agriculture, like they're the backbone of agriculture. So how do we integrate these people to the frameworks that we have, or like these policies? How do we make sure that women in grassroots level are in these spaces and that their knowledge is prioritized, same as the innovations or like modern technology? How do we integrate both of them? Because we have traditional practices, we also have modern practices, and the goal is sustainable agriculture. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's listen from our colleague from Uganda. Introduce yourself and raise the question.
Thank you very much. My name is Godfrey Richile, the Executive Director of local NGO in Uganda. We work with young people, where women focus, and lastly, youth-led. I just wanted to make a simple submission to what Dora said, and when it comes to issues of policy, my question was always asked the policymakers, when we're making policies for people, how well do we consult the local people? Those who are grassroots level. At times we sit in high-level offices, in serious high conference meetings, we make policies that we don't consult the local people down there. So the question is, can we really go down and ask what do they want? Because we assume we know what they want. At times we make policies, when it comes to implementation, it becomes difficult. And then to second, also the issue of young people engagement in agriculture, in all issues like this, soil for us. The young people, we also have a negative attitude about when it comes to issue of green jobs, maybe farming. So that means we need to do a lot in terms of mindset change to young people. Lastly, then the issue of the culture like that. Where I come from, there was a verbal culture where when a man beats a woman, that a woman is not allowed to take this man to report to police. But as an organization, as the activists, we pushed for this to the cultural leaders. We sat them down. We had the dialogue with them. Then we did a lot of advocacy. As we talk now, the cultural leaders in the workplace came up openly, made a pronouncement that from now onwards, any man who beats a woman should be taken to court and must pay for that. And that, I think, it has relieved them. We have cultural issues that are very negative, that are very primitive, and put us down. So of course we respect our cultures, but let us promote positive cultures that's for growth, not negative ones. Thank you very much, members, for listening to me.
Let's have one more, and then yes, welcome. Again, introduce yourself. Then
Yes.
raise the question.
Hello. Is it on? Yes. My name is Leslie Green. I'm director of a research centre at the University of Cape Town called Environmental Humanities South. And I'm also the newest member of the Club of Rome. And we are working on a project with 6 African countries. It's kicking off now in December. It's begun by Science for Africa, or funded by Science for Africa. But I really want to say that one of the things that I think is so important, and it's already come up in today's dialogues, is the importance of indigenous knowledge. And that begins with soil, with land, with sons and daughters of soil. No? When scientists have muddy boots, they ask different questions. And I think we've been hearing a lot. I've been here with the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance for the last couple of days and joined this meeting now. When we're hearing a lot of the suits talking in the hall on the other side, we're hearing science that is not grounded, and it is presented in quite an authoritarian way. One of the leaders said yesterday, it is the science, therefore it does not need to be questioned. There's no discussion. Science can be questioned. Local science can be built. Science must ask the right questions, and we need to get our scientists into the field with muddy boots. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite interesting topics. There's a convergence around indigenous issues, indigenous knowledge, and also the issue of consultation. I think one last one, then I will ask the presenters to respond. Yes, please, quickly.
Okay. Good morning. Or afternoon. I think it's afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Bulisa Masiga. I am a young conservationist, environmental scientist, a lot of things. But I have a question. I don't know who I'm directing it to, so whoever has an answer, tafadhali, please. So I'm part of an organization down South Coast called Shimoni Turtle Watch. It's a youth-led organization, and we're just basically trying to conserve turtles and break some cultures like you talked about, like eating and consuming turtles. And it's going quite well, but one hindrance we have is slow process of policy implementation. An example I'll give is we were creating a database of turtles within the Kisite Mpunguti Marine National Park, yeah? And we're energetic, we're committed to it, and we were actually in the process of, we were quite far in that process, and we had a new warden come in, and basically we had to wait and put that project on hold, and I think it's 3-4 months down the line, that project is on hold, and we don't know for how long, how much longer. So what advice would you give like to a young, enthusiastic group like ourselves? Because if we might as well just go and continue with the work, you know, because that's how we feel right now, but the process of policy implementation is so slow. So what do we do in such situations when we don't have like that power to continue pushing or to hasten that process?
Thank you very much. Because of time, and they are really very important questions, I think I will allow Jane to talk from the research experience, respond to the policy connections based on her experience working with policymakers, and then I'll leave to Dora and Lynn to talk about the experience, what they have done to integrate the indigenous knowledge, maybe in the policy space. So, Jen.
Okay, I can use this mic. Sorry. Okay. not sure that I got the exact question, but maybe what I would say is that I wear many hats. If I talk as a professor of economics, I would start from where people say that research and policy do not see eye to eye. That in academics, we do research just to produce knowledge for our students, and we don't really care whether it goes to policy. We can put it back in the shelves, in the libraries, and it will be read, okay? But from where I sit, with the Partnership for Economic Policy, maybe I should also add that I'm a member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Kenya. So I really work in research and policy. And for many years, I can say that the work that we have done, especially in PEP, we've kind of perfected the art of ensuring that we bridge the gap between research and policy. But it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort because, as you know, we have the two sides. We have the experts, the researchers on one side, and we have the policymakers on the other side. And I wouldn't say that it's a question of distrust, but it's a question of we all have different interests. As I've said, in academics, we have our own objectives. In policy, they have their own objectives. So then what we do, especially at PEP, is co-creation of knowledge, okay? And this is what we are bringing to Earth4All, that as we do the scientific-based proposition, as we look at how we calibrate the SDGs in Kenya to the Earth4All messages or to the 5 turnarounds, we must ensure that we are doing this arm in arm with the policymakers, because they are the ones who are in charge of implementing the SDGs in Kenya. They are the ones who knows what are the parameters that are important for each of the SDGs in Kenya. Someone from outside the government cannot come really and tell them. So from designing or from looking at those simulations to then the national engagement, this is a co-creation process that we must do, and it's the same model that we do in PEP. What we normally do is that we would find a researcher like the youth that spoke about maybe being supported, but then we assign them experts who work with them, one expert who is looking at the policy angle and the other one who is looking at the research angle, to ensure that the research question and the policy question are in tandem, and they work with the relevant government departments to ensure that it's not only, if it's education, for instance, it's not just a question about education, but it's a pertinent education, a question about the education system that is on the ground. Because then we do not want this work just to remain in the shelf. So basically, I think that's what I would say. But we have our website here. If you go to the website, you'll be able to see my contact. I'm the executive director of PEP. I'll be happy to discuss this further as we move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. We only have now 4 minutes because the other presenters are coming. So I will welcome Theo to make an observation and close. And then I would advise the young people to get in touch with Dora and Lynn. Just lift your hands where you are, Dora and Lynn. Dora and Lynn, yes, they are here, so that they can share with you some of their experiences in terms of how they make connections from below. So, Till, please.
Thanks. Just very quickly at the end, and maybe we can continue the discussion here on the lawn afterwards, because there, particularly the questions on indigenous voices, of course, others have more expertise. I just want to say that these questions are fundamental, and what we try to discuss in the book is on a global level look at the kind of interrelationships of particularly that, empowerment, agriculture. Like, what does a food turnaround involve? What does a localization of that involve as well? You know, we describe on a higher level, it's not healthy, both economically and for people, if we let Monsanto and Nestle decide our local agriculture business, right? That is something we can do on the global level. But we lack the expertise, of course, then when it comes to down to the local level, and that's exactly why these national engagements are taking shape. That's exactly what we want to do with them, to write these reports, but what does it mean mean in Kenya? What does it mean elsewhere in the world? So just an invitation again for you to participate in that. And one comment on the science can be questioned point, because I think it's crucial and absolutely fundamental, because one also has to admit that partly science has brought us into the situation. Economics in the last 60 years was not accepting anything of limitations of our planet. You know, there was the quote by Kenneth Boulding 60 years ago: anyone who believes that exponential growth can go forever on a finite world is either a madman or an economist. And that is actually true. And I think we have a lot of objectification or justification through science which needs to be questioned. So what we try to do here is not just throw out a quantified computer model, but test it, check it with different voices, with 30 economists from across the globe, and include other perspectives than mainstream economic science. And just want to end with another quote I steal from Tim Jackson, one member of the Club of Rome: the opposite of despair is not hope, it is action. And in that sense, I hope we can have that action together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Jane, in one maybe 30 seconds, you can close and let us know the way forward.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought Theo crossed, but as a way forward, I think, as I've said, Partnership for Economic Policy is reading the national engagement of the Earth4All messages in Kenya. We are just starting the work. So we call upon you, as I talked about, stakeholder engagement, collaborators, partners. You have a stake in this, please get in touch. As I said, go to our website, you get our contacts, and we will be happy. Over the next 12 months, we'll be working on this. We'll be happy to work with all of you as we look at the key messages that are coming, the implications of the SDGs, and also Agenda 2063 and beyond, and then also getting to the communities, including the ones that are worst hit by climate change, the ones that are limiting themselves because of their own cultural backgrounds, if I may say that, but I'm not saying it's necessarily a limitation, but let's speak together. Thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to continue the engagement. As Tila said, we can go near the giraffes and continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, the organizers.
Yeah, thank you so much.